read the chapters, did the questions, didn't get it. So I want you to read those exact same chapters in a new book, do the questions, see what happens, read the chapters, did the questions, I got it. Took the exam, got an A on the exam, I passed the exam. Well, the next semester I was sitting in a perception class when it suddenly hit me. I said, you know what, that didn't have anything to do with a slant. This guy got me to read 2 books, right? And I was furious with him, right? I was like, he took advantage of my little sophomoric mind with that slant stuff, right? And it wasn't until I was a teacher myself that I understood the brilliance of this man. Here he had a child in front of him who had tried hard but failed miserably. What do you say to a kid who really tries and doesn't make it, doesn't even come close? Mostly people would have said, try again, try harder. But he knew my ego was so crushed. I didn't think I could try harder. I didn't think I had the right stuff. I just didn't think I could do it. And he had to figure out a way to get me to work twice as hard, but to hold my ego intact at the same time. Every day we're faced with issues that people have said, we tried that, it didn't work. Don't bother doing that. You'll never get that to work. Oh, God, don't go there. People are missing the fact that we are early in this science, and we should look at these as opportunities to move the science a step further up. Yes, maybe that didn't work, but how can we think about this differently? This is a great time in this country. We have a president that has decided that education is going to be something he's going to put billions in. He understands the need for innovation, charter schools, holding teachers accountable. He even says get rid of the ones that don't work. You've never heard a Democratic president ever say anything like that before, right? So now the question, if the leadership is ready, if the President of the United States is ready, what's stopping Detroit, right? So here we go. We may not get another opportunity like this. So let me close with a poem. I like to close with poems, and then I'm going to take a couple of questions, but I'm warning you now that I have to be on a plane, and they have been nice enough to actually get me an escort, so we might do slightly more than the speed limit to get me to the airport, because if I miss this plane, my wife will be leaving me. She is a black woman from Harlem. She don't play this stuff, right? She says, yes, you go save Detroit's kids, but you better be here with your 11-year-old by the night, all right? So let me close with the poem called Take a Stand. And I wrote this poem because we have to fight for the soul of America. You know, if you listen sometimes to the debate, sometimes you think you're crazy. Am I really wrong? No, we are right. And it's a fight. And it's not going to happen if we're not prepared to fight. And if we're so afraid of doing stuff that maybe someone might get insulted or someone might not like us, we're not going to save these kids. And so this is a time to take a stand. Maybe before we didn't know that Corey is afraid to go to school, the store, to roller skate. He cries a lot for a boy of 8. But now we know each day it's true that other girls and boys cry too. They cry for us to lend a hand. Time for us to take a stand. And little Maria's window screens keeps out flies and other things. But she knows to duck her head when she prays each night for bed. Because in the window come some things that shatter little children's dreams. For some, the hourglass is out of sand. Time for us to take a stand. And Charlie's deepest secret wishes is someone to smother him with kisses and squeeze and hug him tight, so tight, while he pretends to put up a fight. Or at least someone to be at home who misses him. He's so alone. Who allowed this child-forsaken land? Look in the mirror. Take a stand. And on the Sabbath, when we pray to our God, we often say, "Oh Jesus, Muhammad, Abraham, I come to better understand how to learn to love and give and lead the life you taught to live. In faith, we must join hand in hand, suffer the children, take a stand. And tonight some child will go to bed, no food, no place to lay their head, no hand to hold, no lap to sit, to give slobbery kisses from slobbery lips. So you and I, we must succeed in this crusade, this holy deed, to say to the children of this land, have hope, we're here, we take a stand. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Now, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Now, we've got...
Dr. Canada, we've got time, literally, recognizing the direction you've been given by your wife. We have time for one question. We got time for one question, and so let's see. Dr. Collins, where are you? You got a good question, graduate in the University of Michigan and professor there. I went to USC. We have a real football team.
Thank you. I want to commend you on your remarks today. You've been very enlightening and very informative to all of us, and we wish you continued success. You mentioned reaching out to really address everything. One of the important things, I think, is your involvement of parents. And I wonder if you could share with us some thoughts about how to get parents involved, how to keep parents involved. I know some of the folks here in Detroit have attempted to do that, and they've expressed some frustrations in getting parents to be involved and to participate in the variety of ways you just described.
Well, I mean, that's a great question. And if there is an area that I think we have not pushed the science, it is really this area of parent involvement. And mostly it's because we really think about parents getting involved in their child's education to help their children around education issues. And I had sort of an epiphany about this issue because my wife and I, we have older kids who are grown, but we also have an 11-year-old. It's a long story. I won't go into the whole thing. I know some of you think he's not that smart, which is probably true. But this is something I realized. So starting in about the 3rd grade, a funny thing started happening. About once every 3 or 4 weeks, Jeff Jr. would come in and ask a question that he had for homework that neither my wife nor I knew the answer to. It was just the most shocking thing, right? But we had figured out a system of how to handle this, right? So he'd come in and I'd come over work and my wife would say, photosynthesis. Ooh, now let me see, how many years ago was that? It was like plants and chlorophyll, and strategy was simple, stall them while I go on the internet, right? Get on the internet, come back up and say, son, photosynthesis, let daddy tell you all about it, right? But this is what struck me. So between my wife and I, we've got quite a few degrees. What if you had no degrees and you were a parent? What if you never even learned about photosynthesis when you were in school? What do you say to that child when they come in and say, can you help me with my science homework? Weren't you listening? Didn't you pay attention in school? And then as professionals, how are we relating to that parent and preparing? Because parents won't come in and say, you know what, I'm sorry, my education is so lousy, I can't even help my kid. But they won't say that, right? And so we're sitting there saying, now look, you've got to really sit down with this kid and help. So part of me started thinking, we've got to be much more aware of how we build relationships with parents, right? And we're such A-types in this work that as soon as we get the parent, we're like, oh, I got you now. I'm going to give you everything I wanted to tell you. But part of this is spending the time to actually develop the relationship which allows there to be enough trust for a parent to tell you, you know what, I'm just really struggling with this issue. I just really don't know what to do. Another part, you know, this is just very real. Another part is that when we're in the helping relationship, we often are so used to a certain set of circumstances, driving issues, that we just jump to certain conclusions that I think aren't very helpful. I had a recent case, one of my people that I happen to know had a kid, a girl who was 13, stayed away from home. The mother went crazy and we're trying to figure out. So I called the social workers and everybody's involved, and they say, well, what is wrong with her parenting? I said, can I just tell you, I've been working with this family, and this little 13-year-old, she's a piece of work. She'd be a piece of work for you. She'd be a piece of work for me. I hate to tell you, sometimes it's just the kids, right? And, you know, they looked at me. They were so stunned. What did he say? It's like blasphemy, right, to say sometimes it's just the kids because we're so used to being the parents that's just almost the default position. So part of what I've been trying to tell staff is I find it much easier for my parents to talk to me when they know all the stupid things I've done as a parent, right? They're like, Mr. Canada, you did that? That was really dumb. Yes, I know. And I've done a bunch of dumb things raising kids because who hasn't? But a lot of times we don't break through those barriers so that we can form the relationship so you get enough trust so that you can help this parent with what's really bothering them. And then I'm going to just say this last thing. A lot of our families, we working with the parents to help the kids, but if we're not going to be able to help the parents, we're not going to be able to help the kids because the parents are in as bad shape as the kids are, right? So this is another one of those things of, you know, who do you save, right? And so it's so frustrating for my workers when we can't help the parents, right? And you're trying to get them to help their children. And so this is another one of those areas we threw in the towel and said, look, we got to help these parents. We always got to be able to help the parent and help the child at the same time because our families, their lives are so complex. There's so many things they're working on that it's overwhelming for the parent, and then it makes it really difficult for the child. So I think we haven't built out the science enough, but let me give you a short answer to your question. How do we engage parents? We bribe them, right? We do. We bribe our parents. I'll do anything to get my parents in because my belief is if I hire the right people, once I get the parents to show up, we can engage them. The real problem is getting them in the door. So we got all kinds of raffles and special things. In baby college, about 40% of our families come to we have 11 Saturdays in a row. About 40% of our families come to every Saturday. These are families who are poor with small children. You imagine schlepping out the house every Saturday, 11 Saturdays in a row. You're going to spend 4 hours. You know how we do it? Because I tell them, if you have perfect attendance, your name goes in a hat, and we pull out a name, and that person we're going to pay a month's rent, right? And people, that's the reaction. People say, whoa, that's worth it. Because all my families can count. They say, now hitting the lottery is one chance in 320 million, but there only are 80 of us in this program, right? But let me tell you the logic to this, which people are always fascinated. I use all of these things to get people to do stuff, right? And they say, Jeff, aren't you worried and morally? And no, it doesn't bother me at all. Because I would spend, to hire a good outreach person, it's going to cost me about $30,000. By the time I put fringe on it, it's about $42,000. To give away a free month's rent, few of my families rent $1,000 a month, right? So if I run 6 classes, that's cost me $6,000 tops, right? So when you look at it, it's a much more efficient, by the way, if I had an outreach worker, they wouldn't get me 40% of the families coming to every single class, right? So it's using things. I always believe that in the end, get them in and then see if your staff are good enough to engage them and help folks, but use things and activities and raffles and other things to get people engaged and make the message. So we do the teaching, but I say don't lead with the teaching. Right? A lot of our parents, they've been worried about being in school and they didn't do well in school. And as soon as we start giving them, say, do some fun stuff, do some singing, some dancing, some fooling around, and then slide into the teaching part over time. So we're building this part of the practice around parents. It's easier with the younger parents. The place we've had the most difficulty is with middle school and high school parents because a lot of times the kids don't want the after-school program to have that kind of relationship. But even there, we find if you do these kinds of little events and other things for parents, it really works. I want to stay married. Thank you all. I hope you guys do the right thing in Detroit, okay?